Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Quarterly Report. This is our second episode, and boy, do we have a lot of news. Our doc is huge. Even me and my editor were looking at each other, and we are like, oh my god, we're going to be here for a while. I don't think he's clicked on the doc just yet, so I'll give him a moment before we get started. But we're going to get started with the new Windows mainline update. Yeah, that works. The new Windows mainline update, that would be KB 502.1255 or build number 22621.963. This update addresses a known issue that might affect Task Manager. It might display certain elements in the UI or in unexpected colors. I still don't think it might be selected. I think my doc's still broken. Oh, wait. Don't drag and click. Just like click on the actual text. Nope, don't highlight it. Do I have a cursor? No, I just want like, do you see the text cursor? Is it moving? Oh, yeah. It's working now. Okay. Some parts of the UI might not be readable. This issue might occur if you have the choose your mode set to custom in the personalization settings. So that issue is now addressed. That actually was an issue that I noticed using this build, so I'm very glad that that's gone. It's not really a huge issue, but it's nice to see that Microsoft is also addressing some of these less important, more design-focused issues that the community is complaining about as well. I think that's good to see. This update also addresses an issue that might affect data protection application programming. So the decryption of a certificate private key might fail, apparently. Because of this, VPN and other 802.11 certificate-based services and authentication networks might fail. The issue might occur when you encrypt the DP API within Windows, or perhaps your master key with a wrong value. In terms of Apple news, we're going to talk about that for a little bit. Apple actually saw their next major minor revision. I don't know. Apple's a little weird with their updates. I've always found software update naming schemes to be a little weird. Like, the first decimal, that's meant for like major updates, like huge, big changes, those types of things. And then the second decimal is meant for like minor changes that aren't like minor changes. They aren't like as big as like a huge new feature packed update, but they might have like a feature here or there that's brand new. So I call those minor major updates because they're just kind of weird. And then the last one is minor updates, which makes sense. Those are your bug fixes, security patches, whatever. They make sense. But this is WatchOS 9.2. Race Route lets you compete against your previous performance in outdoor run, outdoor cycle, and outdoor wheelchair. I know that's extremely helpful for me in particular because I love outdoor cycle and I cycle all the time. That is actually pretty enticing to me. They also have a new kickboxing algorithm in the workout app for more accurate metrics. That's always good to see. We always like more accuracy when it comes to something, especially that Apple touts as a bit of a medical product. I don't even think they should necessarily be marketing it that way, but they seem to be. They're like, more recently, they've been like, oh, Apple Watch saves lives. Apple Watch this. Apple Watch is going to get you out of a tough spot. And while we have seen that it can do that, I don't think they should necessarily tout that until they've actually gone through some medical channels, hired some doctors on their development team to make sure that they're actually meeting medical specification. Though it is always nice to see new features. The Noise app is now displaying environmental sound levels, and it displays how much they are reduced. And that's a feature that's now available with AirPods Pro 1st Gen and AirPods Max when using active noise cancellation. I assume it's on AirPods Pro Gen 2 as well. Family setup users can be invited to the Home app to control HomePod speakers and smart home accessories and unlock doors with home keys and wallet. That's cool. Accessibility support to visualize when siren is in use on Apple Watch Ultra. Okay. We like some more visual cues to know that when we accidentally set off like our emergency SOS features. I know I do that on my phone at least once a week, and especially not so much since I had an Android, but ever since I like when I had an iPhone. Oh my god, every like day I would accidentally set off the emergency SOS, and I was like, "Oh man, I better not accidentally call the cops and get a fine." Thanks, iPhone. Um Improved response time and accuracy of hand gesture controls for assistive touch and quick actions. Always nice to see accuracy when it comes to gestures. I can tell you that touch rejection on Samsung phones is awful, and if we see updates to that, I would be so happy. Um, Crash detection optimizations on Apple Watch Ultra and Watch Series 8 SE second gen. This fixes a bug that causes display of incorrect watch time, which would kind of that's kind of the most important part of a watch. You know that the time on the watch is correct, and immediately after dismissing an alarm in sleep focus. There was a fix for the bug causing interruptions to mindfulness sessions. And now we'll move on to macOS. macOS Ventura saw 3.1's first 3.1 drop. This introduces Freeform, a new app that it offers a great place to brainstorm and bring your ideas to life, says Apple. We'll see how this actually holds up when I go to actually test this in macOS Ventura 13.1 and when we confer with Harpreet, our resident macOS expert. This release also includes advanced data protection for iCloud. I have heard that this new encryption actually pissed off the FBI. It's one of the few times they'll say, okay, maybe Apple might be doing a good thing. They removed the part of their policy where they were going to be scanning photos and sending them off to the police when they suspected you of doing things, especially because of how inaccurate that detection is at the moment. I would be fine with something like that if I knew it was actually accurate. If I knew it wasn't prone to the same amount of error that a human has, I would be more open to something like that. Personally, I think it should be an opt-in sort of thing, though. Freeform allows you to collaborate with colleagues. It's basically a flexible canvas that lets you your files, images, stickies, and more. It sounds a bit like Discord, but a bit more interesting and a bit more for the creative side of things. They also have a new option that expands the total number of iCloud data categories protected using end-to-end encryption. So that's back to more of that encryption talk we were talking about. This now includes iCloud backup, notes, photos, etc., which would protect your information even in case of a data breach in the cloud. This update also includes the following improvements and bug fixes. They improved search in messages, which allows you to find photos based on their content, like a dog, a car, a person, or text. That actually, improvements to that is really cool. I like that technology. I use it a lot on my phone, and any improvements to that are definitely welcome. Participant cursors. Haven't actually read up on this one yet. In notes, allow you to see live indicators as others make updates. I feel like that should have been there a lot sooner if they introduced collaborative notes at any given time. Personally, I feel like that's a feature that belongs in any OS. Windows, Microsoft Word has had it for a while. Even LibreOffice, which we use here, which is free, uses that already when you do collaborative work. Google Docs as well is another. I just think they're behind there, finally catching up. You can play sound and Find My app will now help pinpoint you the location of nearby AirTags, AirPods Pro 2nd Gen, and Find My network accessories. Fixes an issue that causes some notes to not sync with iCloud after updates are made. That's definitely a good fix. Fixes an issue where you may lose keyboard and mouse input in some apps and games. That's very helpful for me since I use a keyboard and mouse with my iPad Air 5 a lot of the time. I really think that the iPad is now pushing to be a bit more of a laptop replacement. I wish that they would start to allow us to use Mac OS apps on the iPad. But let's talk a bit more about iPads when we talk about nothing. Because I just wanted to mention first off, just to get it out of the way from my topic list, that tvOS has no changes. I also wasn't able to find a changelog for the iOS 16.2 and iPad OS 16.2 changelogs at the time of filming to go along with that. Unfortunately, I wish I had more information, but I guess we'll be giving that to you next week. Instead, let's talk about HomePod 16.2. Apparently, this one actually packs a lot of bug fixes and enhancements for the HomePod. According to WCCF Tech, that is. That's their quote. It is a must download for any HomePod users, and it fixes a lot of issues that plague the platform. But I wasn't able to find a lot of detail on that. I'll read into that more, and we'll talk more about HomePod issues and are they fixed a little, probably in the next episode. The Android 13 QPR 2 Beta 1 came out. The first feature spotted is that when now playing on the lock screen has been moved up and it's closer to the fingerprint icon, and the text is slightly below the icon. With the beta, Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro now support T-Mobile 3QA. I can't read that. I can't read that from here. Sorry, I left my glasses at home. It either says 3QA, 3CA, or 333OA. I'm not sure which. Right after it says Pixel 7. It's a C. It's 3CA. Thank you. Not just that, Pixel 6 Pro can now move to from 1080p to 1080p from the default 1440p resolution. That's actually nice to see, especially for gaming. If you want to crank the resolution, you can drop to 1080p. That was sort of hard for me to read. I guess I wrote that really badly. I must have not had sleep the night before I wrote that. The same feature can be found on the Pixel 6 Pro. Another visual change brings the carrier actually gets a separate line appearing on the right instead of the same row as the status bar. This is for the quick settings panel area. The new update also made the Health Connect app a default app. I don't understand. But Google has also removed unified security and privacy page, which interesting move. The Pixel launcher has received some tweaks with the new Android 13 update, with the padding slightly thicker in the folders and app drawers. And the most prominent feature, however, is the inclusion of spatial audio settings, which many people have been waiting for. This is similar to AirPods Pro 2 or Samsung Galaxy Buds Pro 2, where they've had this for a little bit. Speaking of audio, the media player now has a lava-like effect on the lock screen and quick settings menu The last visual change that we noticed is that it introduces a large clock, which expands the quick setting when you expand the quick settings. It's minor, but honestly, I like that type of thing, and I just think it will make it just like a little bit better. So, if you have any information or discovery of new features, let us know in the comments below, because that was all that we were able to find in our time of experimenting with it. I also have limited access to Pixel devices, so I didn't have too much time with it. We also have been hearing, speaking of redesigns, we also hear of a PS5 hardware revamp. This could apparently include a removable drive bay. This would probably be the biggest overhaul, even though we know that the devs have already been playing around with changing the PS5's internal structure, usually for cost reasons. So here we're seeing that they might be using a detachable Blu-ray drive. This would allow Sony to simplify their product lineup, offering only one base PS5 SKU, then rather than the current two models, just with and without the disk drive included, and possibly have it as an option later on for people who may want to get a disk drive. We should hear more about it officially soon. For those asking what's the point, I think it's to make manufacturing cheaper. Just by having one console, the regular PS5 and regular PS5 digital will cease production by the end of 23. This is according to the Henderson rumors. In other news, Apple Silicon Macs experiencing Wi-Fi issues, unlike the PS5, which was not. That was a bad segue, but we're going to keep going. So they are having Wi-Fi connectivity issues and speed drops with the M1 and M2 series of chips specifically. A Wi-Fi installation company for businesses called Meter published a Bing post, a Bing blog. I swear I'm having a stroke. The Macs with the M1 and M2 are experiencing Wi-Fi connectivity issues. Meter and other wireless vendors have filed reports, and it seems to be a known issue on Apple's part. Although these issues can manifest in various ways, the underlying issue is the same. Throughput and speeds drop, devices get disconnected randomly, and fail to rejoin the network. The IT services department at UCLA is also aware of the issue and has been tracking performance through its service status dashboard. The IT team suggests that Apple will fix this issue in its upcoming macOS 13 Ventura updates, which, no word on that, unfortunately. So, yeah, I've heard about issues with M1 and M2 Max specifically for a while now. I work in a place that services Apple devices. It is a proper AASP, so I can't say too much about what we actually do there, but what I can say is that we see a lot of people come in with this problem, and we just have to tell them wait for the software update. That's all we can do. It's on Apple's. It's in Apple's court now. Really, Apple just has to reproduce the issue at their campus and push a fix, and hopefully we'll see something. We'll see updates on this later. Something that is improving, however, is Intel. They have leaked benchmarks of their 13th gen non-K CPUs. We have benchmark leaks on the 13900, 13700, 13600, 13500, and 13400. They have apparently been tested on Intel's upcoming B760 chipset, and we are expected to hear more word on these CPUs and that chipset on January 3rd. In Cinebench multi-thread, the 13900 got 25,000 points versus the 13900's 38.5 thousand, which is a 54% difference. The 12700 scored 22,000, whereas the 13700 scored 29.3 thousand, which is a 33% difference. The 13600 scored 14,000, and the 12600 scored 14,000, and the 13600 scored 22.1 thousand, which is 58% better. Even though this is an Elder Lake refresh, this looks like this is going to be a good generation for all parts of the CPU lineup. From the 12500, we've got from 13,000 to the 13500's 21.1 thousand, which is a 62% uplift. That's the biggest in the whole lineup. And then we have the 12400's 12.6K versus the 12400's 19.3K. So we're seeing large. That was 53%. We're seeing large multi-threaded gains. Let's see what we're seeing in single-threaded. We're seeing about 10%, 5 to 10% gains across the entire lineup. It's really not that impressive in terms of single-threaded. However, I feel like nowadays, most customers and most people are happy with CPUs in terms of single-threaded performance. I think multi-threaded is going to become much more important as time goes on, and the fact that we're seeing these big gains in multi-core performance, I think, is more important than these very small gains in single-core. I think we only have smaller and smaller gains to see in single-core as time goes on. The AMD 7900 series graphics cards have been on sale for about a week. We talked about those last week. And there's, of course, a new driver to go with them. So let's talk about that. The AMD Radeon Software Adrenalin 22.12.1 brings support for 7900 series graphics cards. They didn't fix any bugs. They didn't announce any new titles. Honestly, hopefully there will be a lot of... We did get announcements, though, that 3 major bugs will be fixed with the next driver. Hopefully there's more than just 3 on that batch list. I don't think it's worth getting 2 drivers that are essentially nothing. And hopefully this comes before Christmas. I have no doubt that it will be out by the end of the year, however. Basically, the issues are as follows. Corruption may be encountered when using virtual super resolution with multi-display configurations. A system crash may be observed when changing display modes with 4 display configurations. And one which got cut off, which I guess we won't talk about now. Let's move on. Intel had a leaked roadmap. This new version of Intel's roadmap shows a Raptor Lake refresh that is set to appear on the Z790 chipset in Q3 of 2023. We're not too sure what this means yet, but this is only further confirmation that this is indeed coming. We have heard rumors about this for quite a while. It also shows that we are expecting mainstream and workstation. I'm very tired. We are expecting mainstream workstation Sapphire Rapids 64L6 CPUs alongside their W790 chipset in Q1 of 2023. I've heard rumors that these are getting announced at CES, but again, these are only rumors, so we're not confirming that. That might not happen. They're also claiming that so-called expert workstation Sapphire Rapids 112L CPUs will come out on the W790 chipset a little later into Q1, possibly Q2 2023. They're replacing their 64L counterparts, so I'm not sure what this means for CPUs just yet. We'll have to wait and see for more rumors or announcements on what these 112L processors mean for the industry. They also announced a reference of their C-Series chipset, a refresh of their C-Series chipset in C741. This is set to debut with their Eagle Stream processors, which are built on Sapphire Rapids. I believe these are might be the ones with the GPU built in that they announced, like the full size GPU. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. I'm not too sure on that one. You can also see that in quarter four, they um they plan to announce a successor to Eagle Stream with Eagle Stream Refresh based off of newer Emerald Rapids. Speaking of things getting faster, IDA 64 6.85 released. This adds support for NVIDIA AIDA and AMD RDNA 3 based GPUs. It also introduced AVX 512 optimized stress tests for the AMD Ryzen 7000 series. This also brings with it, of course, support for AMD 7000 and Intel 13th gen CPUs. They also have enhanced support for Intel's yet to be announced B760 chipset, which is interesting, possibly hinting that the release is near, probably CES, hopefully. Team Group announced some new RAM with AMD Expo support. The Team Group Delta Alpha RGB, what a name. Delta Alpha, the Delta Alpha RGB. Man, oh man, you gotta check out my PC. I just got the Delta Alpha in it. Oh my god, it's so cringe. It's so cringe. I can't understate it. What are these PC manufacturers naming their products? Please, please, please hire me. Hire me. Hire me. I'll name your products. I'll name it. We'll name it the Team Group T-Force Strike RAM. Okay, you know, it's Strike RGB or Striker RGB. It's better than Delta Alpha, right? Like, it's not good, but it's better than Delta Alpha. I'm better than what you have now. You may as well hire me. I'll accept less pay. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that out there, and now everybody out there is gonna have to wonder whether I was serious or not. Yeah, how do you feel? So these come in both 5600 as well as 6000 megahertz flavors. I have no numbers on latency or voltage yet, which is great. But I do know they only come in these sizes. They're expected to release in early January around the CES period. AlphaCool has announced full coverage 7900 series blocks, and Visual Studio has released a new update, 17.4.3. This fixed a bug in the allocator that resulted in memory leaks. With multiple C++ translation units were analyzed in the same compiler invocation. This is actually very helpful for me in particular. They fixed a bug where local thread variables caused the linker to admit the fatal error, invalid export error. They fixed a bug in the alligator that resulted in... Oh, we just talked about that. I think I just hit the wrong button. Fixed an underlying exemption leading to a gold bar with message diagnostic analyzer runner crashed while editing. Very interesting bugs there. C# or Visual Basic Code, they improved the performance of submitting a feedback ticket on the developer community when recordings are attached. They added support for Xcode 14.1 for Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Mac. They also added Xcode 14.1 support for .NET and tvOS, iOS, macOS, and Mac Catalyst. They updated .NET MAUI to 7.0.52. They fixed failure to deploy UWP apps to devices which were not paired to a machine where Visual Studio runs. That's always nice to see. We also got a new Visual Studio preview build. We got Visual Studio Preview 17.5 Preview 2. For C++, there were a lot of function changes this update. I would recommend checking the patch notes if you're a developer and you need to update your code. It might be possible with this one. There's a lot of new debug features included in this one. Nothing super important to anything that I'm doing or anything that I've seen, so I don't really want to talk about too much about it. I'm looking through the patch notes right now. It's pretty long, and it's also not a lot of relevant information for things we talk about. Instead, what I'd like to talk about is where I see C++ going in the future. So right now, I think C++ needs to work on adding a lot more instructions for ARM and RISC-V specific based CPUs. I think that's going to be a big thing for Visual Studio. The reason I think it's so important is because Visual Studio powers most devices, like even Android phones, game consoles, everything like that runs C code on it. Even Macs run C code to a degree on them. And if you're running C code, then you should at least have good instruction sets for your specific device. The instruction sets for ARM64 and 64E devices within Visual Studio is severely lacking right now. It's pretty disappointed, actually. So, in terms of any actual changes in the new preview that I think would be important to anybody that I think should be listening around here, not really. Unless you care about some of the new Microsoft Teams development changes. If you're really big on Teams development, I didn't know there were people that are. If you are, please tell me about it in the comments. Maybe we'll talk about it next time on the show. Maybe I'll even bring you on and we can talk about that. I would love to be more informed if that's something that people are into. CUDA 12 came out. Now, I was much more excited for CUDA 12. The minimum required driver jumps from 450.80.02 and above to 425.60.13. So you now have to have a driver from the 525 branch if you're going to be using CUDA 12. Essentially, that means you should be using a 900 series card or later by this point. The bundled driver version bumps from 520.06 to 527.41, which is a driver version that would never actually release to consumers. We are instead on a later release known as 527.56. It is normal for CUDA implementations to normally run a little ahead in terms of driver version. Many of the enhancements are generally specifically towards NVIDIA's Hopper and Lovelace architectures, such as the new tensor operations like TMA bulk, and 32 Ultra XMMA. In both FB8 and FB16 flavors. You can now use virtual memory APIs with GPUs masked by CUDA visible devices. They have new parallelism APIs, which NVIDIA claims offers substantial performance improvement over legacy dynamic parallelism in CUDA. The compiler sees fixes with newer versions of Visual Studio 22 version 17.4 Preview 3 and later. NVCC and NVRTC also now support C++20 dialects. NVRTC's default C++ dialect has been updated from C++14 to C++17. NVVM IR virtual memory management has been upgraded to NVVM IR 2.0. These newer instructions are no longer backwards compatible with NVVM IR 1.x, and programs will have to be written to support if they plan to use CUDA 12. CentOS Linux support has reached end of life, and NVIDIA has replaced it with Rocky Linux. Windows Server 2016 has been deprecated, and people are recommended to switch to Windows 2019 if they would like to continue to use future releases of CUDA. CUDA 11 applications are not guaranteed to work on CUDA 12, and slight reworks may be needed to restore functionality. CUDA memcheck is removed and replaced with the new compute sanitizer. Kepler's compute capabilities have been completely removed within CUDA 12. CUDA Math now has been updated with new integer FP8 and BF8 APIs to expose performance benefits on newer DPX instructions found on NVIDIA's Hopper GPUs. All previously deprecated undocumented APIs are removed from CUDA 12. Deprecation of non-CTX based API support has been announced for the next release. The NVJPEG library has been updated with better GPU memory optimization, which is always nice to see. In other software update news, Format Factory 5.13.0 is out. They updated EXIV2 picture information library. They updated FFmpeg to 5.1 stable version. They changed the naming in the naming rules in Video Joiner and Mux. They fixed a bug with adding images to Video Joiner and Mux. They also added support for NVIDIA's for NVENC AV1, H.264 MF, H.265 MF, and hardware encoders, and they also optimized their H.26x NVENC H.26x QuickSync and H.26x AMF encoders. They added constant quantitization parameters in NVENC, and they optimized the resolution of low and medium quality and size. In laptop news, monitor news, we've heard announcements of MSI's Meg 342 QD OLED monitor. It's using a QD OLED Samsung panel. It's 34 inches wide with a 21:9 aspect ratio. It's set at an 1800R curve, which is not too aggressive. It runs 3440 by 1440. That's a UWQHD resolution with a 175 Hz refresh rate. It rocks 2 HDMI 2.1, 1 DisplayPort 2.1, and 1 mini DisplayPort. It also has a KVM USB hub built in with a Type-C port capable of 65-watt power delivery. It also uses their new Spectrum bar technology. This name is awful, but it refers to the new LED light bar that goes across the bottom of the display. The bar is meant to react to the ambient lighting in the room, and I hope it's actually addressable within software, because I feel like I would hate that after a bit if it can only match the colors in my room. It's expected to be announced at CES 2023. RISC-V as an architecture is apparently positioned to now tackle AMD and Intel's x86-based processors. There are claims of a chip being produced with 192 ARM-based RISC-V cores on the 5nm process, just like we see with modern x86-based processors. This news comes from Ventana Microsystems, who have begun to design their first server-grade processors, which they aptly named the Veyron V1. If you know anything about the car community, you know that for a long time, the Bugatti Veyron was the fastest production car in the world. The processor has a total of 192 cores, and I think that might be why it's named the way it is, because that's the most cores we've ever seen in the processor, and I think they're positioning it to be the fastest processor that we've ever seen, ever. Because those cores run it up to 3.6 gigahertz. It has an 8 pipeline design with 16 cores per cluster, thus correlating to our 192 total. It has 48 megabytes of L3 cache which is not a lot considering modern processors like AMD 64 core and even 48 core Threadripper and EPYC can be found with substantially more cache. Heck, even processors in the consumer space like AMD's 5800X3D and the new 7013th gen of processors have more L3 cache available to them. It also supports out of order execution. It has advanced security to via SID channel attack mitigations. It has IOMMU support for virtualization and IAI technologies. I'm sorry, AIA. The V1 is aimed towards server tasks like storage management, web hosting, data centers, and streaming services. Next up in hardware news, we had some 4060 Ti rumors recently. The 4060 Ti is meant to be based on the 8106 350-A1 GPU. The 36 that would actually be a lower GPU than what was on the 3060 Ti was based on the G8104. So it seems like they've dropped it now to 8106, so dropping it an entire bin. Hence the 500 dropping cores for 4352 CUDA cores in the 4060 versus the 3060 Ti versus the 3060 Ti's 4800. It has 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 at 18 gigabits per second, which is 4 gigabits per second faster than the 3060 Ti base, but 3 gigabits per second slower than the 3060 Ti with GDDR6X. Though it does have a half the memory bus at a 128-bit bus versus the 3060 Ti's 256-bit bus. This allows for 288 gigabytes per second of total memory bandwidth, which is half the bandwidth of the 3060 Ti, meaning that it has a substantial amount of ground to catch up if it plans to catch up or beat the performance of that GPU around the same price. It's also using the new 12VH power connector, so chances are if you are buying one, you are going to need to upgrade your power supply, even though it only has 225 watt TDPs, meaning that technically one 8-pin in the slot is enough to power the entire card. We also see a lot more L2 cache in this card, 32 megabytes in total, and it's expected in mid-2023, under $500 USD. It might be worse than the 3060 Ti. In more GPU news, Intel has released a new GPU driver since last week. This one is 31.0.101.3875. This has day one optimizations for the Witcher 3 Next Gen update, High on Life, as well as Conqueror's Blade. We see a 4% higher performance in PUBG at 1440p Ultra on the Intel Arc Series GPUs. And EK announced a special edition Radeon RX 7900 XTX waterblock, which is all in red. It looks very nice. Techno in laptop news has announced the MegaBook S1, a 1.35 kilogram or 2.92 pounds for those Americans out there, 13.5 millimeter thick laptop with a 15.6 inch screen. It's aimed at business and creatives. It has a 16 by 10 aspect ratio, which I really like, a 3.2K 120 hertz display. It offers 90% screen to body ratio, a 450 nits peak brightness. I would like to see closer to 800 or 1000 if it's aimed at professionals, especially given the price once I reveal it. 100% of the sRGB price range. It rocks an i7 1260p, which is 12 cores, 4 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores for a total of 16 threads. 4.7 gigahertz max boost on the P cores and 3.4 gigahertz max boost on the E cores with 18 megabytes of Intel Smart Cache. It has a 65 watt turbo TDP with a 28 watt regular TDP. This laptop comes in configurations of 8 or 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 5200 megahertz. It has a 512 or 1 terabyte PCIe 4.0 SSD in by default, and it brags speeds of 5,000 megabytes per second read and 4,800 megabyte per second write up to. It has a cooler capable of handling the CPU at up to 35 watts, 4 full frequency speakers, 2 tweeters, DTS:X Ultra Cinema included, AI enhanced vocal speech algorithm known as AI ENC built into the mic system. No idea what it does, but it looked fun to say, so I said it. It comes with a 65 watt GAN charger, a 70 watt hour battery, 2 USB 4 ports, two USB 4.0 version 1.0 Type C ports, 2 USB 3.0 Type A ports with no description of generation or speed, a full-size HDMI with no specifications on which version of HDMI or its speed, a 3.5 millimeter jack with no specifications on what kind of DAC powers it, a micro SD card reader, again telling me nothing about its speed or if it's UHS 2 compatible, nothing. It has NFC pairing though, which I don't really understand how it would be useful on something like a laptop. Please tell me how it would be useful in the comments below. It would be really useful for engagement, not really useful to me. The 512 gigabyte model is meant to start at $1,500 US, and the 1 terabyte model at $1,600 US. Now, of course, that's not bad to double your storage, but that's bad pricing compared to other things in the market. Clearly, they're trying to copy Apple with the pricing here, and I don't think it's doing them any favors. It seems a little overpriced. Not to mention the lack of a dedicated GPU at all. That honestly really worries me to see. I would really hate if I had to do all my work with an Intel integrated GPU, especially at the price point and who it's being marketed towards, like creators who need a fast render engine. Something that goes a lot faster though is BioStar, and is a dedicated GPU, is BioStar's new 7900 series of graphics cards. I don't want to talk about them. Why am I bringing them up? I want to talk about what they put on the boxes. I'm gonna talk with my I'm gonna look my editor in the eye here real quick because I want to tell him this one because I want it to feel as natural as possible so you guys can feel the true rage emanating from my body as I deliver to you what is included with their graphics cards. The box says Ultimate Gaming in big letters, big bold letters, big bold blue multicolored letters with lightning bolts coming out of them all over the box. It is disgusting. It is cringe. I hate it. Like seriously. I wish I could put an image on screen, but I didn't prepare one ahead of time. But the box literally says Ultimate Gamer. Even the reference AMD model, which most of them, they just use AMD's normal stock like box and they just put their logo somewhere on it. These guys even added the Ultimate Gamer to that one. Very, 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 very disappointing. It's kind of sad, really. At least I know that's one GPU I won't be buying. It's gonna be the one that's not. It's gonna be the one that says Ultimate Gamer on it. That's the one I'm not buying. Yeah, seriously, I didn't want to talk about their actual cards or models, since there's nothing really exciting there. I just wanted to talk about the wonderful marketing. Cherry bought XtraFi. Cherry, the Switch manufacturer, has now bought out Swedish gaming peripheral manufacturer XtraFi. I've actually tried and liked some of XtraFi's products. Especially like their mice. Their lightweight mice are really, really nice. I recently tried them up based on a recommendation I read on Tech Power Up. So I really hope that Cherry doesn't screw them up as much of this as they've screwed up the mechanical keyboard pre-built market with their garbage switches. Like, could you imagine, like, if someone like Gateron or Kale were the main switches of choice, or like any other companies that has actually released new switches and are coming out with new switches in the past like 5 years or so? I mean, Cherry doesn't even have an optical switch yet, as far as I'm aware, or if they do, I haven't seen it on a keyboard. Um, or it just didn't stand out enough to me, or it isn't one I would buy. Um, you hear a lot about about optical switches, and you even see them hitting the DIY market now. Like I saw that Gateron has some optical switches in the DIY market, and I know for sure that Flare Techs have been out and have been hot swappable for a while. They are Flare Techs, I know for a fact, aren't as good as specification wise as some of the proprietary switches coming out of the major keyboard manufacturers. I really hope that more major manufacturers like ASUS start to offer hot swappable keyboards to the mainstream market. I'd also like to see off the shelf keyboards begin to use more than just Cherry and proprietary switches. I would love to see a Corsair or a Logitech keyboard with some KO box royals on it. I would buy it immediately. Or at least give me a hot swap board so I can do it myself. Corsair has actually been behind in the keyboard game for a while until recently. I like Corsair and I like their products, and I hope they are one of the first, like ASUS, to adopt hot swap on their mainstream keyboards. Razer would be the next person I want to adopt something similar practice. If you're going to make switches that die in 2 to 3 years, at least give me an easy way for me to replace them myself. The final Windows Insider Dev Build of the year has come out, Windows Insider 25267. They are continuing to play around with their changes in the search and taskbar menus, continuing to try and update the design to make it a little more modern to fit with the rest of Windows. They also fixed an issue which caused some insiders to have issues casting their screen to other devices. They also fixed an issue causing the Bluetooth section of quick settings to crash for some people. I know Harpreet, one of our other members of staff here at the Hubcast, have complained frivolously about how much they hate Windows Bluetooth connection. I know I hate it myself. It drops out constantly. Fix your shit, please. Other than that, it seems like they've also fixed the fact that the entire system volume could unmount itself when you had an NVMe SSD randomly. It's about time. It's about time because I've had this issue more than enough times. They fixed the issue which would cause the search box to float on the screen and never disappear even when you try and click it, especially when you have an external display attached. I know I've suffered from that one for a while now. They have fixed some issues when using simplified Chinese as a language option. Usually some crashes to do with mistranslated text. If a Windows update failed to install, the error code in Windows Update history can now be selected if you want to actually see what it was, which is massive. Why hasn't this been there forever? So this is only in the dev channel. No idea when it's coming to the main channel. We also have some new known issues, specifically with ARM64 devices experiencing a black screen when resuming from sleep or hibernate. That's a nasty one. I know we even had that with x86 a while back. Using Windows Hello to sign in with facial recognition on certain devices may not work. So a workaround is to use your PIN, is what Microsoft says. The RTX 4080 has dropped below MSRP in Europe. The GPU is now €50 cheaper than for the cheapest card available when compared to the reference model. I believe when I saw it was a Gainward GeForce RTX 4080 Phantom at €1349.95 instead of the MSRP of €1399. Speaking of available better priced GPUs, in Gigabyte's Arc A380 and A310 custom GPUs have been spotted for sale in Russia. The three cards available in the region are the Gigabyte Intel Arc A380 Gaming OC, the A380 WindForce OC, and finally the Gigabyte Intel Arc A310 WindForce. After currency conversion, it seems that the cards range in price, with the gaming OC being the equivalent of $231 USD. The WindForce OC A380 is the equivalent of $216 USD, and the A310 WindForce is $170 USD. Interesting to see these coming to Russia, considering how many countries are banning imports and exports to and from the country. As well as the political tension surrounding the area as of late. I don't want to discuss politics. I'm not a good person to discuss politics, so we're going to move on. Apple released their full suite of iOS 16.3 beta updates recently. This is the first version of their new major minor revision of their software. Gotta love software naming. When you try and find out what all the zeros mean for each company. It could be worse, though. It could be USB, whose naming is anything but universal. Beta 1 of 16.3 has come out for iOS, iPadOS, tvOS, and macOS. The first beta of 13.2 is for macOS, actually. My bad. I'm sorry. They don't follow iOS naming scheme. And the first beta of 9.3 for watchOS would be the one that's come out now. I wasn't actually able to find any news on what these updates entail, so if you've been testing out these updates, please let me know in the comments below what you've been finding, and I'll be sure to let everyone know the next time we host this podcast. It seems that I'm running out of topics. I've run out of doc space, and even though that was a really long doc, we managed to get a whole bunch of content out in there. It seems that I've actually run out of tech news for the week. I will see you all again on, I believe it is Friday that I'm doing another upload. Thank you all for sticking around and chatting with me and learning. So see you all next time.